Hi there, welcome to this vodcast on answering question 2 for the Edexcel Unit 3A Surgery GCSE History exam. For further resources you can go to www.relentlesshistory.wordpress.com or follow on twitter.com/BraytonHistory. Okay, let's get started. Typically, question 2 focuses on impression. What impression has the author or the artist tried to give about a certain topic? In this case, we're looking at what impression has the author tried to give of the operations before the introduction of anaesthetics. This is because anaesthetics has only come up once as a topic prior to your exam for 2014. As you can see, it says explain your answer using source B. You're not using your own knowledge, you're only using source B. So make sure you apply evidence from the quotes or from the image. Although it's worth 8 marks, you should be done in about 10 minutes. Try not to go to the 12 you might ordinarily plan for. This is to give you that extra time for the big mark questions further on. And it's also due to the fact we're talking about a relatively straightforward skill. So here we have the source B, an account written in the 1850s of an operation before the use of chloroform. If we just take a minute to have a look at this, it's quite straightforward. It states, before the days of anaesthetics, a patient preparing for an operation was like a condemned criminal preparing for an execution. When I had my amputation, I counted the days till the day of the operation. I counted every hour of that day. I listened for the surgeon's carriage, the sound of the doorbell, his footsteps on the stairs. I watched the unpacking of his dreadful instruments. I listened to his few solemn words. I can still recall him spreading out the operating instruments, his first cut, and afterwards my bloody limb lying on the floor. The great suffering I experienced cannot be described in words. I would have been spared all this by the use of ether or chloroform. Now it's telling us very, very simply this person's feelings of an operation. But read it again. Look at the language being used. What impression is it trying to give about the operation? That's all question 2 is focused on. It's not rocket science, it's relatively straightforward. If we have a look at the mark scheme, it shows us an explained impression. Analysis of the treatment, selection of the source content is used to explain the impression. So rather than just supporting your viewpoint, the impression, with information, you're explaining how that information answers the question or gives the impression. So, for example, how is the use of words in the impression supporting that view of the operation? If we have a look at the examiner comments previously, it gives us an idea of what we should be doing. Candidates should be reminded to analyse individual details of the source and link them to the overall impression created. Candidates need to infer the overall impression. What is it saying about the operation? And then identify the parts of the source that apply that, but say how it does that. Make sure you identify the difference. In most cases, question 2 is going to be focused on impression. So let's have a look at an answer. Here we've got the first paragraph. I've marked it level 1, level 2, level 3. The author of source B has tried to give the impression that operations were terrifying. So, here he's provided a simple statement without support, a valid comment about the impression but no detail. He now moves into level 2, stating that the patient waiting for the operation was like a condemned criminal preparing for execution. Notice the quote marks to back it up. And here, in yellow, what we're seeing is the analysis. The comparison creates an image in the reader's mind of someone completely frightened, awaiting their death sentence. By doing this, the author convincingly presents operations before anaesthetics like an execution, even suggesting that operations were likely to result in death. He's saying how that statement there answers this point here. In doing this, already the candidate would get a level 3 and be awarded a minimum of a 7. Unless the detail of the explanation was light, it would get a 7. If it was light, it would get a 6. However, he continues. Throughout source B, the author uses descriptive imagery to portray operations as so horrifying. Makes a point. He applies a quote. He encourages the reader to imagine feeling so terrified, giving the clear impression how dreadful operations were. He exaggerates his description. So, what we're talking about here isn't reliability. It's not about purpose. It's simply about impression and how that's come about. Finally, we have another example here. So you can see that this candidate should really score at least a 7, probably an 8, for a solid, explained impression. However, do not confuse the message of source it gives with the impression. The message is focused on what it's trying to say and why. The impression is how it goes about suggesting it. Now, I will be making it very, very clear. Since June 2010 to June 2013, all but one of the question 2s have focused on impression. But, like this chief examiner for Edexcel, one year, June 2012, this question came up. Why was the illustration included in this book on surgery? Explain your answer using source B. You could get marks for looking at the impression, but that's not what's being asked. In fact, we're looking now at purpose. Here it goes. That's the question. This was the image. As you can see, it's looking at Lister's carbolic acid spray. Again, you can have a look at techniques of art. Note where the carbolic acid spray is. The focus on the patient. The purposeful identification of jets of carbolic acid spray. Here you can see the mark scheme is treated slightly differently. To get the top marks, analysis of treatment or selection of the source content is used to explain purpose, i.e. the drawing is designed to encourage others to use the new methods being used, the carbolic acid spray. The operation is showing new techniques, therefore must have been important as the drawing of them has been made. So the clear focus is not so much on impression but purpose, and again using details from the source to identify and explain that. If the purpose question comes up and not impression, read the source information first, look at the picture carefully, focus on who produced it. Why is it being produced? Why would that make a difference? In the case of source B, 1882, it was only a few years after the discovery of carbolic acid, so it's trying to promote the spray being used, hence its central location. Doing things like that would get you a level 3. So hopefully it will be an impression question, but be careful just in case purpose does come up. It's only been on once. It might never do again, but just in case. Okay, I hope that's been useful. Remember, you can go and access all the resources regarding this at relentlesshistory.wordpress.com or twitter.com/BraytonHistory. I hope this has been helpful, and good luck with your exams.